This show is crap. This show is crap. It has Uncle Elmer. This show is crap. Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the fourth, well, what was supposed to be the third episode of the WrestleReview series. By the way, the reference to this show in the intro, that wasn't this show. This was the show that was about the show that we're recording now. It's all very complicated, isn't it? So yeah, I'm your host Nathan Packham, as per usual. And if this is your first time joining the WrestleReview bandwagon, the People's Army, then be sure to check back over the episodes you've missed. And I'm joined today again by CM Punk obsessed wrestling fan, Tom Sinden.
Twice in a row, yes, It's me again. Hi, that was a good intro.
Twice in a row with the CM Punk.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, CM Punk. Wherever you're listening from, be sure to like, repost and share if you're enjoying the content. And you can send feedback, as always, to WrestleReviewFans@gmail.com. Do you know what? I'd love one email to come to that account. Someone, please, that wasn't a Twitter notification. Oh, random person followed you who's actually a troll.
Or just me emailing you generic stuff.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Great show, man. You're shit.
Really liked the guest. Thought he was good.
Alright, yeah, there we go. I finally set up a Facebook page and Twitter page for the WrestleReview, so you can find WrestleReview by looking for the WrestleReview podcast in pages on Facebook if you search it, or follow at WrestleReview94 on Twitter. I might be changing that though, I don't like the 94. But at the moment it is WrestleReview94, so follow that. I couldn't just have WrestleReview, which I was annoyed about. So I don't know who nabbed that. Before we move on today, I should explain I'm changing the final rating for each show, so it's more of an overall feel for the show rather than an average of the matches. This is because I realised this policy totally ignored strong/terrible segments, general organisation of the show and flow, along with the fact any show is unlikely to get anything more than 4 out of 5 stars basically. And on a great show you can have shit and filler, but it can still be, a strong show. This rating will obviously be at the end, as per usual. With that in mind, I'm just going to look back over the show so far. So first of all, we had the Black Saturday /WWF on WTBS show, which received a 1.5 out of 5 star rating. This would actually receive a 3 out of 10, so that's actually the same rating.
That works.
That's how terrible this show was. You should really watch it for just how bad it was. Then WrestleMania 1, I think that got like 2.5 out of 5, I seem to remember. I would give that a 7 out of 10 actually. It was actually 2.5 originally. The Wrestling Classic would receive a 6 out of 10 rather than the relatively low average of 2 out of 5. And WrestleMania 31 would score an 8 out of 10 rather than the slightly harsh 3.5 out of 5 that we ended up giving it. So yeah, let's go on to today. Today we're looking over the second WrestleMania event which comes from 1986, the 7th of April to be precise, which emanated from 3 cities and included a huge main event between Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy inside the steel cage.
Huge being an operative term, I think, which we'll get to a lot.
Jeez, they're just massive. Before I move on, I'm saying before I move on a lot, it's like we're never going to get to the show. I'd like to thank Matmen Podcast and WrestleRap again for favouriting my tweets to them regarding our Shock Contemporary turn last time that me and Tom partook in, that looked back at WrestleMania 31. Thanks for your support as always, guys. But today we're back to reviewing WWF pay-per-views chronologically, and here we're delving headlong into a pretty bollocks show, to be honest, WrestleMania 2, but stick with us, it's quite funny.
It is good.
So we'll talk about the background first to the show. The main feuds for the show were set up on a Saturday night's main event from March the 1st of 1986. So Bundy and Hogan had their first televised contest on November 2nd on another SNME, which was on November 2nd of 85, where Hogan and Andre the Giant faced King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd. Hogan and Andre won the match, not that surprise, it's the 80s. And Hogan also defended the title against Morocco, which we'll be discussing later, but Bundy prevented the 3 count with a run-in. So we're back again with the Mr. T and Roddy Piper feud as well, so a bit of build-up to this one. Roddy Piper was the top company heel coming in, who feuded with Hogan and T at WrestleMania 1, of course, and he was with Paul Orndorff and Bob Orton for that match. There was actually a real-life hatred between Piper and T, which was turned into a feud by the WWF in an Edge and Matt Hardy style kind of way.
Yeah.
Piper was particularly pissed off by T's lack of wrestling prowess. In a match at the aforementioned SNME, as I'd already talked about the March 1st edition, Roddy Piper distracted and then assaulted T along with Bob Orton after T had won the boxing match against Orton. Yes, he was involved in another boxing match before this one. T then demanded a match against Piper at WrestleMania II because of this. And also another big feud coming into the event was the Bulldogs against the Dream Team, although I don't think they're actually ever referred to as the Dream Team in this event, they're just Beefcake and Valentine. Dream Team won the titles off the US Express, that's Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, IRS, who we saw in WrestleMania 1. That was on August the 24th, 1985. They were immediately challenged by the Bulldogs, who won a match at a house show by DQ, so obviously the Dream Team still retained the belts. The Dream Team then won their match at this infamous SME, but the Bulldogs were given one last chance to prove themselves at Mania after failing to secure the belts on the other two occasions. In the women's division, we've got the original Screwjob.
The original
Screwjob,
yeah.
Not the Montreal Screwjob. Where this took place, where the Fabulous Moolah won the title, what I think was still the Ladies' Championship.
It was, yeah, the Ladies' Championship.
Back as the masked Spider Lady. After Richter was yet to sign a contract, this is Wendy Richter, was yet to sign a contract with the WWF. The Spider Lady got the win, Moolah, after pinning Richter, despite the fact she kicked out of one and her shoulders were off the mat. Great end. A furious Richter left wrestling forever, but eventually settled her grievances with Vince and the WWE and was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think, some like 2010 or something. WrestleMania 2 emanated from 3 separate locations. A deal, I believe, was made with Donald Trump, who I believed owned each of these venues. I might be wrong on that.
Sounds about right.
That's what. Yeah, money.
He owns most things.
That's what I'd heard. It was mostly shown on closed circuit television like WrestleMania 1, but was the first WrestleMania to air on the national pay-per-view market. So yeah, it's time for the event itself after that elongated intro and background. Part 1 comes from the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. We get an introduction, we get a big, glossy and epic 80s introduction, sexy saxophone music, and WrestleMania 2 is announced as being what the world has come to, where the strands of the WrestleMania 2 sign reveal themselves to be the 3 locations the event is being held from. We enter the New York section where we are greeted by Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So yeah, Vince McMahon hypes the event with, he's got an awesome jacket on, and he introduces Susan St. James as the #1 actress, as if that was quantifiable.
This was the first event where I noticed quite how rigid Vince McMahon was before he got into his Mr. McMahon character. I mean, Nathan's intro there was very kind of Mr. McMahon Attitude Era sort of thing.
Mr. McMahon, not Vince McMahon.
But Vince McMahon as a commentator, they kept cut back to him every so often, and he doesn't move his upper torso. You just got to look out for that one. But yeah, the actresses, they're going to play a very prominent role in the pay-per-view, I think, as we go on.
Yeah, what I didn't actually hear in this pay-per-view was Vince's classic, "Unbelievable! Unbelievable!" which he developed when he was often the commentator in the New Generation period.
Yeah.
So then we get a performance by Ray Charles. So Vince, in his classic mad style, he goes a bit Mr. McMahon here, introduces us to Ray Charles, who sings a strange military/soul crossover of America the Beautiful. The microphone is erratic, a theme throughout the show and throughout so many of the WWF 80s events. We get the classic American images such as military photos, hardworking people, the White House, which gets a huge pop from the crowd, Mount Rushmore, Lincoln, Kennedy, King, the flags, eagles, along with stranger inclusions such as office workers. It was
the backbone of the great nation.
Well, it was the yuppie 80s, I suppose they had to have it in there. And cotton pickers, just to exacerbate America's inequalities. There is a hilarious end with Hulk Hogan pictured as somehow the epitome of all American achievement, along with a video game/pixelated fireworks display behind him. We're sent over to Mean Gene in Chicago, where he's at the Rosemont Horizon. He hypes the NFL versus WWF Battle Royal later in the show and sends us to a typically memorable Rowdy Roddy Piper interview.
Yep.
So back in New York, we're with Rowdy Roddy Piper. Piper discusses how the only difference between him and T is the fact he's grown his hair for the event, The rest of the promo is fairly incoherent. Piper talks of his work with a medicine ball and how he'll quit wrestling and even tiddlywinks and dating girls if he loses. Then he talks of shaving his head like an Indian and painting himself black.
Yeah, I know that he does at points in his career.
Yeah, that's at a later Mania, I think.
But, I don't know. Precursor of what's to come, I'm sure.
These sort of comments are the kind that WWE backs away from with a warning message at the start of shows if you're watching the network, and obviously Benoit shows as well.
Yep, anything.
And after all that fanfare, we're finally into match 1, which is Don Morocco with Mr. Fuji against Paul Orndorff. We randomly receive audio at the beginning of this match, previewing the match, but as the match begins...
Yeah, it cuts out.
Yeah, Morocco says Orndorff will be an embarrassment, as Orndorff says hi to those in TV land, and talks of an increased work regime leading into WrestleMania 1. The match is described as no physique contest, even though it's the WWF, and obviously they're all about physique. The lighting is also very poor throughout, giving this a kind of house showy kind of feel. We get some early body slams from both, they're both absolutely massive at this point in their careers. I don't want to point to any substance abuse, but maybe. Orndorff gains advantage with a really long armbar. Morocco reverses with a cool armbar drag, using the ropes for leverage out of the corner. But it's reversed, and that armbar lasts even longer this time. Susan St. James, oh god, here we go, describes Orndorff's technique as ancient Chinese and slow torture, perhaps a reference to Mr. Fuji, who of course is actually Japanese. Morocco hits a fairly decent Samoan drop before punches from both as they both get caught in the ropes. The ref actually aids a count out here by helping the two out of the ropes as they battle outside. Morocco is sent into the ring post as Paul Orndorff threatens him with a chair that doesn't actually fold. So it's a non-folding chair. Great. They're both counted out, obviously. The crowd chants, "Bullshit!" which Vince actually acknowledges, which is how times have changed, really. Vince wouldn't normally acknowledge that now. Confusion ensues despite the fact that it was obviously a count-out, and Vince sends us to a promo by Mr. T. This is a very poor show to the start for me, to have a short match that ends in a double count-out, despite the quality of the two competitors, in my opinion. Why start a show with a double count-out? Student St. James is very annoying, like in all the matches to come, simply exclaiming, "Uh-oh!" and "Oh!" throughout. I gave this match 2 out of 5 stars. How do you find it, Tom?
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those, especially on things like pay-per-views, to see a double count-out is always a bit of a dissatisfactory sort of way to end it. Nathan actually explained it, making it sound like it was quite a nice technical match. You had things like arm bars, Samoan drops, things which you wouldn't necessarily associate with some of these wrestlers of the mid to late 80s. But yeah, it wasn't anything memorable. I think by the end of this 3-hour extravaganza, you won't remember Mr. Wonderful versus, I've got written down, the Magnificent Morocco.
It was actually, yeah, it was the Magnificent Morocco.
So yeah, same for me, 2 out of 5.
Yeah, dull. So yeah, Mr. T cuts his promo whilst they're still deciding what happened, even though it's obvious. So he cuts an incoherent promo. I don't have any detail of it down here because you couldn't fathom anything. Which is cut off by the Fink's announcement of the obvious but somehow confusing count-out decision. We're straight into match 2 then, which is an Intercontinental title match between George the Animal Steel versus champion Randy Savage, who is of course accompanied by the lovely Elizabeth. We cut to a promo of Savage, who has to hold his own mic, as Mean Gene is in Chicago. No one there to hold the mic. Macho Man says hilarious things such as, "Yeah, freak out!" and "Macho Man's zeroing in on you!" He also announces himself as the Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion of the world, which is like 3 belts in one. I don't really understand. Like in his Wrestling Classic matches, Savage gets out of dodge about 3 or 4 times during this match. Steel eventually catches up with him and bites his leg, and later in the ring he does the classic big man pick up / choke by the neck thing. There's a cool spot where Savage hides under the apron and attacks Steel from the other side of the ring before Steel bites him yet again. St. James, she's back, makes a hilarious comment in which she questions whether Savage has had the right shots, as in flu shots, to face the animal.
Right, yeah.
Oh my god. Flowers are then somehow introduced to the match. Did you see where they came from?
No idea.
they just appeared, and they're used, but there's no DQ, even though it's a foreign object. I suppose they are only flowers.
I feel like the no DQ thing should be more readily applied to him being bitten twice.
That's quite a good point. Was he had his shots? I don't know. I also don't understand how flowers hurt in any way. Savage sells those flowers well.
Yeah, maybe a blinding sort of effect. But this isn't
my
like
allergies.
This isn't like an ingredient to like baking flour. This is genuinely just like daffodils.
that might sting a bit.
But just daffodils, But Savage as a true workman sells it anyway.
Steel also bites the turnbuckle pad and chokes Savage by shoving it down Savage's throat. The foam of is it polystyrene? I don't know.
It would be kind of like a. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But again, no DQ.
Choke with the foreign object.
When you've got foreign objects and you're shoving it down someone's throat. The ref was very lenient in this one, I felt.
So there are now petals and foam all over the ring, which I found quite funny. Savage performs an axe handle outside. I love those outside axe handles from Savage. Every time, they're great. Steel is distracted by Elizabeth, and he then performs an elbow drop, where I believe Steel becomes the first person to kick out of his patented elbow drop. So, yeah, what an achievement for Steel.
Goes down in history.
Yeah, well done, Steel. Steel claws at him some more, is reprimanded by the ref. Savage drops him down and picks up the 3 count using the classic heel rope leverage move. Mm-hmm. Steel bites the turnbuckle in consolation and chases the ref out of the ring. I actually found this pretty entertaining, despite how shit the match was. I liked the madness of the flowers and the ring post being shoved down his throat and just him gnawing at the ring post. I gave this 2.5 out of 5. What about yourself?
I took a slightly different approach to Nathan. I was looking more kind of like an in-ring ability. Obviously, Savage goes down as possibly one of like the greatest, maybe top 5, if not higher, particularly for me, as an in-ring worker. But when you're forced to play this kind of like cowardly heel, you can never really perform too exciting a moveset because otherwise the fans would start responding to it. So instead he was forced to do a lot of running in, running out, nefarious tactics, going for flowers, hiding, all that malark really. So for me, unfortunately, it was only a 1.5 out of 5. Oh, George Steele, I don't get, by the way. I know that there was kind of a storyline between his infatuation with Elizabeth and Randy Savage.
That was just weird.
Playing the jealous kind of boyfriend. But if I was Randy Savage, I wouldn't be too worried.
That hair.
But yeah,
that
for me,
hair of George.
For me, 1.5. Yeah.
Oh dear. So we then go back to Mean Gene in Chicago. He's interviewing NFL Rookie of the Year Bill Fralick and WWF superstar Big John Studd, the Giant Studd. Studd says he's coming to get Perry, referring to William the Refrigerator Perry, who has a massive part in the show later on, and he crushes a football in his hands as Mean Gene is aghast, basically saving the whole promo. Big John Studd says footballers have no class compared to the WWF. How is that ever the case? How is there a class difference between these two? Both as bad as each other. Bill Fralick doesn't care when the match will be, whether it's in 5, 10 or 20 minutes, despite the fact we have a way longer wait for the match than that. Back to Vince's Susan in New York. Susan discusses her fear of snakes in preparation for Jake Roberts' appearance and states she hopes he will lose so that the snake isn't taken out of the bag. Oh, well, match 3. George Wells, or should I say Jobber Wells, versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Wells was previously a player in the Canadian Football League. He looks very bland and is the classic WWF hard-headed black guy and jobber. Wells gets on the offensive before the bell even rings and hits a nice backdrop in the process before the competitors contrive to go outside the ring. Back in the ring, Wells hits a CFL-style shoulder tackle and an amazing standing head scissors. I like that move. Jake Roberts has literally no offense until a clever knee lift to stun Wells and a DDT, which gives him the win. It was very competent wrestling from Wells, despite how mediocre he initially appeared, and I loved both the execution and the bump Wells took for the DDT. For me, short but sweet, and not forgetting that great head scissors from Wells, I've got to say. It's 3 out of 5 stars from me. What about you?
Yeah, once again, taking a slightly more, I'm going to say pessimistic approach than Nathan. Like Nathan said, the George Wells material was quite solid. Jake Roberts, probably the innovator of the DDT, possibly one of the best executors of it as well, and that was pretty good. So for me, just a 2 out of 5, and that might become a theme throughout the rest of the show.
Oh dear, 2 out of 5. So after the match, obviously he gets the snake out of the bag, Jake Roberts that is, not Wells, and drapes it over Wells as it constricts him. Was animal and human safety ever considered in all of this? I don't know whether the snake was... Can you train a snake?
Yeah, I think so.
Wells sells this amazingly by foaming at the mouth. I hope he was selling.
Yeah, I was wondering whether he did that or whether someone kind of put something on his mouth. I mean, this was that
it's
Susan
horrible.
St. James? Is it Susan St. James?
What was she like? Uh-oh.
She was not enjoying herself in this. And actually, in the previous match, the Savage, the Animal match, she was... The amount of time she said George.
Oh, yeah.
I know she said George a lot. And then obviously you had George Wells again, and I was like, she's saying George a lot in the shower.
Oh, George. Wells, Wells, I'm on commentary now. Vince and Susan St. James discuss the fact that Jake is still undefeated. That's not just at WrestleMania, because he'd be 1-0, which is an undefeated streak, but pretty crappy one at that. But he's undefeated in his entire WWF career to date. We get a tape of the Roddy Piper Mr. T feud. So we're sent to a tape of when the feud began at that SNME that I've already mentioned in Phoenix. Mr. T was involved in a boxing match with Bob Orton, but was goaded into an unsanctioned fight with Piper before getting a knee from the back from Orton. Then we've got, randomly we go to Jesse Ventura with Hulk Hogan. Jesse Ventura is annoyed about being introduced by McMahon as he feels he doesn't need an introduction. I love the body. He questions Hogan's injury to his ribs, and Hogan acts annoyed and predicts that T will win the boxing match before Ventura ends the segment by stating, "Good guys don't always come first." Great message for the kid there, Vince.
Yeah, no.
Howard Finkel introduces us to Joan Rivers. She announces that the guest judges are basketball player Daryl Dawkins, who forgets to wave when introduced and has to be prompted, jazz legend Cab Calloway, and Watergate felon G. Gordon Liddy. The timekeeper is Herb, who I believe was in some Burger King adverts in the 80s. I don't know whether it's just Rivers' voice, Joan Rivers, or the shitty tech again, but the mic is going absolutely crazy at this point.
I didn't recognise her.
You didn't realise it was Joan Rivers?
Well, obviously they introduced her.
Oh,
and
the
then I was
surgery.
but I haven't seen a huge amount of her work, maybe pre my life, so I'm only 20, so, I didn't recognise her. It was a bit surprising.
R.I.P. Jane.
Yeah.
Match 4 is the main event for the New York section, and inverted commas. Rowdy Roddy Piper with Lou Duva, who's a boxing trainer, and Bob Orton, versus Mr. T with Smoking Joe Frazier, the boxing legend, and the Haiti Kid, who's simply a midget. It's worth remembering that T has no boxing background. Why is he in this match then? Why has he already had a boxing match? He was only trained in amateur wrestling. Roddy taunts T during the ref chat as they come face to face. Round 1, and Vince makes pains to reference T's peekaboo style, as he seems more comfortable commentating on boxing than wrestling, which is I like the movement you were doing there.
Yeah, his peekaboo was very kind of like swing left, swing right, maybe land a punch every now and
Predictable.
again. Very predictable.
Apparently Vince's grandfather was involved in boxing in some way, so maybe that's where he's kind of a bit better than...
Wouldn't surprise me.
Rather than saying things like, a suplex-type maneuver. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. There's very little happens in the first round, yet the two have to be broken up at its close. I don't know how that happened. Piper taunts T in the corner during the break. Round 2 begins as Susan discusses how round 1 went to T, but Piper seems smart. Talk about a fence sitter. T already seems knackered in this round, clearly not that physically fit. He seemed way fitter in WrestleMania 1, it's only been a year. I don't want to suggest any substances there. Where are we? Piper is reprimanded for having grease on around his face, so the glove slides off. You can kind of see that it looks very shiny. Piper dominates T. Maybe it's just that's the sweat he has.
Maybe.
Piper dominates T in this round, and a huge punch knocks him down. Piper wastes time by trying to attack T again, and is sent to the corner by the referee. T gets up to about after 7. It would have been 10 if Piper hadn't been so foolish to try and carry on attacking him. T is knocked down again, but the bell rings. Piper seems to give him a little kick at this point. Nice one, Piper. Orton throws a bucket of water at T in the corner. This is clearly not a real boxing match. Round 3, and the confident Piper does the alley shuffle, which was pretty awesome to see. But T dominates the round as Piper is knocked down, but he gets up at about 7 or 8 as well. Big shot by T seems to miss, but Piper feigns it and is knocked out of the ring. I wasn't sure if you're even allowed out of the ring in real boxing.
No, but, this isn't boxing.
Yeah, that's right, it's not. Piper gets back in. They do a count out, and Piper gets back in at 8. Susan St. James foreshadows, this is her one bit of good commentary all night, she foreshadows Piper's desperation, his desperate moves, as T continues to taunt Piper. Before round 4, Piper, the best spot of the whole pay-per-view, Piper throwing a stool at T, and it looks like it catches him really badly on the leg. It's both a pathetic and looked like a really painful spot at the same time. We talked about this earlier.
We did.
So awesome.
Yeah, it was just a really odd sort of thing, and the ref just kind of went, like, everyone kind of just was so blasé about it in the ring.
Oh, well, you know.
And it didn't look like the
It
most...
looked horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but...
leg break.
Yeah, it was a best spot of the match, and it was in the time.
It wasn't even in the match. We finally get to see the ring girl, who's holding up an awesome gold boxing glove, stating round 4. That did look cool. There's a punching battle as both look utterly exhausted. Both mouthpieces fall out. Once again, I'm not sure this is legal or not in an actual boxing match. And with the ref knocked down, Piper's so bored, pissed off, and probably as bored as all of us, he slams T out of desperation. So well done to Susan for predicting that. You're shit for the rest of the pay-per-view though, Susan.
I think there was actually a little bit right at the end, which I agreed with as well, but we'll come back to that.
Okay, this was a fairly boring watch, except the stall shot and the body slam at the end. I've given it 2 out of 5. T is declared the winner by DQ, and a melee ensues. How did you find it?
Same as you, 2 out of 5. Roddy Piper's one of those characters who is such like he knows his way around the ring and how to be like the perfect heel, like doing his little nefarious, like throwing the stool, or even when like Mr. T was down, he was just kind of like pushing him with his foot and stuff. It's just those little touches which, although they're not necessarily improving the quality of what's going on in the ring, it tells the story a bit better, which kind of saved it from being an absolute disaster. Mr. T was subpar, I think, is probably
just
the
slow.
He didn't really offer anything. I feel like at this stage, obviously WrestleMania is such like a new concept to them. They're just trying to like cram in as many kind of celebrities as possible, and if they can get them doing anything physical, particularly like Mr. T, obviously had it last year and you have it this year, then they're going to try and engage it as much as possible. But yeah, he wasn't a Piper saved this personally.
It's going to be an ongoing theme. Too much of just everything
Yeah.
you could put into a wrestling show. I will be discussing that. I'm sure Tom will in the conclusion as well. So we're on to part 2 of the show. This is from the Rosemont Horizon, which I believe is in Chicago.
Yep.
We're with Gorilla Monsoon and Mean Gene. There's further promotion of the Battle Royal later tonight, and an introduction to our second non-wrestling commentator of the night, actress Kathy Lee Crosby, who's in a chrome jumpsuit. Who admits to never seeing a live wrestling show before. Great start, Kathy.
Good.
This is going to be great. Chet Kopuk. I hope I said that right. I feel like I'm swearing. You Chet Kopuk.
Right, okay.
A radio broadcaster starts announcing too early, and the commentators have to finish their discussion quickly.
Yeah.
Match 5 of the night, the first one in Chicago, is Velvet McIntyre, versus the Fabulous Moolah, who is the champion, the Spider Lady, for the WWF. It's changed to the Women's Championship here.
Is it?
So this
I wrote down ladies.
Oh, I think I heard women's.
Okay, fair enough.
This is the first non-sexist championship match. As I said here, no longer the ladies' title. Hair drag snapmares by Moolah to start, a one-footed drop kicks by the barefooted / pyjama-wearing Irish lass, Velvet McIntyre. She misses a splash from the top rope and seems to suffer some kind of wardrobe malfunction, which almost sees her breasts pop out. I don't know if you caught this.
I didn't.
It's a Botchamania favourite.
It's nice to see that you did.
Yeah,
I did not.
Thank you to Mafu there, whose WrestleMania Mania series, that's what it's called, has that spot. Moolah appears to notice what's happened, covering her up literally for the 3 count inside a minute, even though Velvet's foot are on the one foot, even though her feet are on the rope. It's the Chicago screw job after the original screw job. It's happened again. This was a really short squash. Some nice moves though, but I can't give it any more than a 1.5 out of 5. What did you think?
I went more.
What? Did you give it a 2?
I gave it a 2, and the reason, I'll tell you. No, the reason I gave it a 2 was that it was going at such I knew it wasn't going to be long, because it was going at such a quick pace, especially for like Fabulous Moolah. She's getting on a little bit at this stage. I'm not quite sure on her age, but she's been around the block for a while. I think she's held the championship for a long old period before this. But yeah, it was a really fast pace. Like Nathan said, there was a few good moves in there. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but yeah, I thought it was alright. I thought if we had it for maybe 4 or 5 minutes of it, then it would have been a little bit better, but like you said, it was so quick. But yeah, 2 from me.
Oh, they're very positive there, Tom.
Yeah.
And a little bit forward information, as it were. McIntyre would actually hold the title for 6 days on the tour of Australia. If you want to see that tour, it's on the amazing Global Warning DVD that I have. Whatever. You've seen that. It's not very good.
Yeah, no, I have seen it. It wasn't my fave.
Then we go out to Mean Gene, Gorilla Monsoon, and Kathy Lee Crosby. There's a discussion of the 2 refs in the tag match because the Dream Team have been screwing over people for too long. And Kathy has had a rethink after meeting the wrestlers, like every outside commentator. And she believes the wrestlers will defeat the NFL stars in the Battle Royal, mainly because it's held inside a wrestling ring, you think?
Yeah, you'd have hoped so, really.
Match 6 then is Nikolai Volkov with a man who's no longer called Ayatollah Freddie Blassie. Yeah, if you listened to Black Saturday, he was called Ayatollah Freddie Blassie versus Corporal Kirshner in a flag match. I noticed at this point that the announcer, Chet Kopuk, that swear word, kept announcing second names all the time. He'd be like, Corporal Kirshner, a little bit afterwards, just so the crowd knew. It gets very annoying as the section of this show carries on. The Soviet Union anthem is cut off by patriotic music. And Kirshner comes out. Most of this match takes place outside as Kirshner is busted open by a couple of ring post shots, i.e. blading, I guess. And Volkov also bites him, but like earlier, no DQ. Kirshner knocks down the ref but isn't DQ'd, and Blassie throws his cane in, but it misses Volkov and is caught by Kirshner, who smacks Volkov for the 3 count. He then displays the US flag, as if the US were going to lose a flag match at Mania. It's not going to happen. It was weird that this wasn't your usual flag match where you have to grab the flag on the pole, and you have to wonder why Volkov couldn't have just displayed the Soviet flag anyway, because it was in residence. Mostly bullshit, but there was blood, and I like the cane ending, so I've given it 2 out of 5 stars here.
For me, I'm shaking my head right now. For me, worst match on the card.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was slow. I'm not a massive fan of the flag match kind of formula, regardless of if we're looking at it from what happened at this event or if we're looking at kind of
I hate normal flag matches.
It's not
Get
really
the flag.
It's not
So
my
clunky.
cup of tea. Nikolai Volkov is capable. He's a bit of a legend and he is capable of so much more, but he was obviously never in a position to win this. Corporal Kirchner, I can't say I've really heard of before having a look at this and maybe a few other pay-per-views around the time, but for me, poor 1
1 out of 5.
1,
Ouch.
lowest.
Kirshner does appear on Wrestling Classic, if I remember correctly, but doesn't do a great deal. I think he wins his first match, maybe. I'm not sure. Oh no, he loses it to Adonis. I remember now. I like Adonis. Just want to say that before we move on.
We got some Adonis stuff coming up in a bit.
Then swear word Chet Kopuk introduces Mean Gene Oakland. Mean Gene goes over the rules of the Battle Royal, your usual stuff over the top ropes, both feet have to touch the ground, etc. And introduces guest timekeeper Clara Pella, who looks very grumpy and confused. Perhaps because she hasn't found her Wendy's beef yet. Those were the adverts she was in.
Or she's just been watching the rest of the card.
Yeah, just oh my god. And she wants to say something, but forgets that you have to hold a microphone to your mouth in order to say it be heard. And instead moves it with her arm movements as we hear absolutely nothing of what she said. She just looks really pissed off, basically. NFL stars Dick Butkus, what a name.
What a name. Good effort.
And Ed Too Tall Jones, who is huge, as you'd expect with that name, are announced as special refs. Then the participants are slowly introduced, and this takes absolutely ages, as you'd expect, because there's 20 of them. It is 20, isn't it?
Yeah, 20.
And it takes 7 minutes of your time to get through that. And every non-Chicago Bear NFL player gets a little boo from the crowd. William the Refrigerator Perry, living legend Bruno Sammartino, and Andre the Giant get the biggest pops from the crowd of the night. A few other observations I had. Ted Arcidi was massive, but also really small. He looked about 5'4".
That's not a thing.
No, but he was so steady.
This
Yeah,
modern Rusev.
he looked a bit like Rusev. Yeah,
Rusev looks pretty big,
just with steads
and tiny arms.
Sorry, don't sue me, RCD, please. And the Hearts aren't wearing their usual hot pink attire. They're in blue.
Yeah, blue and black. Was Pedro Morales in this one?
I think he may have been, yeah.
He's also... I feel like calling Bruno Sammartino a living legend is fair, but Pedro Morales, I think they even introduced him as the only man to have held all 3 active championships in the company at the time. So, that's a cool claim to fame as well.
What I also wondered was the fact that Andre the Giant and Dan Spidey were in Hulk Hogan attire. They had the yellow going on, which is strange.
Yeah, well, Andre might still be a face at this point?
Oh, yeah, with Hogan, blah, blah.
So they might
he would have been, yeah. So yeah, match 7 is on. It's the NFL versus WWF Battle Royal. And we're joined by the big cat, Ernie Ladd, who joins Gorilla Monsoon on commentary, as he was both once a footballer and a wrestler. One of the few bookings on the card that actually makes sense commentary-wise, as he was in both fields.
Not just the biggest actress in the world at the time.
The #1 actress, which we can quantify. We're told that there are over 5,000 pounds of muscle in the ring. In another rare WWF admission of wrestling slang, Ernie Ladd describes the battle royal between the battle between Andre and Big John Studd as containing heat. Some notable early moments include the Fridge eliminating Tony Atlas and two legends, Sam Martino and Hart, battling it out. It's a shame they didn't kind of collide in time-wise.
About 20 years difference between the primes, I think.
Bill Fralick, of previous interview segments, is eliminated by the Iron Sheik and Big John Studd. The Iron Sheik is taken out by Bruno, who is then eliminated by Big John Studd himself. Perry tackles both Harts, but they both manage to hang in there after they're sent over the top. And he then sets his sights on Big John Studd, who he tackles successfully first before going to the well one too many times. Big John Studd catches him with an elbow and throws the Fridge over the top. Oh, I was so upset that he went out so early. The Fridge then fakes a friendly handshake to Big John Studd and throws him out. Hooray!
Yeah.
The final four are then the Hart Foundation, which is, of course, Brett and Jim Neidhart. Russ Francis of the NFL. I mean, who is that guy? I have no idea.
Russ Francis of the NFL.
Well, we're English. We don't know who that is. He had boring black tights on. And Andre Hulk Hogan the Giant. Andre does his caught in the ropes routine after some heart drop kicks. And they then eliminate poor generic Russ. They go to work on Andre, but obviously can't get him over. Andre hits a terrible big boot on Neidhart, who effectively throws himself over to save the spot. That was a great bit. It's so bad. And Andre then catches Hart on the top rope and throws him out on top of Neidhart. Andre Hulk Hogan the Giant is your winner. Entertaining, if shite technically. I would have loved to have seen the Fridge versus Andre, but two faces don't make a right in the 80s. Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd at the end would have also made more sense to kind of finish their feud, in my opinion. 2.5 out of 5 for me.
Yep, same for me. I agree with pretty much everything you said as well. Big John Studd obviously being painted as a bit of a Goliath in battle royals at this period. Obviously, we've got a Rumble victory coming up. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a Rumble victory coming up at some point.
Ruined my show in like 3 shows' time.
And he obviously he was the one who in these promos beforehand was taking on the NFL people. He was really trying to sell it. But I think Andre might be undefeated in over the top rope battle royals at this stage. For me, same again. I didn't take so much of a technical stance on this one because what can you do when there's 19 other 5,000-pound men?
If you want to watch a good battle royal, go back to WrestleMania 31. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, WrestleMania 31, good spots in that. Or watch a few of the Rumbles from a few years back where you got some classic Kofi. But yeah, for me...
SOS!
For me, 2.5.
And then we're back to Vince and our favourite Susan St. James in New York. They interview Piper, who feels T treated this match as some kind of picnic, and he makes links between Mr. T and the other cheat, William Refrigerator Perry. Obviously wants more heel heat. He reiterates his Indian and black comments, oh dear, and says he liked the fact that Frazier was wearing a kilt during their boxing match. I didn't even see that he was. I think he was just in boxing shorts. There you go. We get a replay of the DQ, and Piper says he likes the way T fell on his head. Thanks, Piper. He does a monkey noise and also an action as they go back to Chicago.
Classic
Piper.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah, that's... It was a different time. Obviously,
WWE does not take any action, please.
Things that, if that occurred now, I just feel like it's just unheard of to occur now. But yeah, that's one way to garner some heat at that period. Yeah,
that's why there's the message at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, we don't take any responsibility for what happens. Mean Gene interviews Jimbo Covert, who's another NFL star. He says he feels cheated by Bill Fralick, and then the Iron Sheik arrives and says that he showed America that the WWF is better than the NFL. Sheik wants to ramble, but Mean Gene steals the microphone back as the Sheik opts to just simply do a pose with his still fairly impressive physique. Match 8. I was looking forward to this one. It's Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine, the tag team champions, also known as the Dream Team, with their manager Johnny Valiant, versus the British Bulldogs, the challengers, with Ozzy Osbourne and Lou Albano.
If I didn't recognise people earlier, Ozzy Osbourne, I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I was like, Ozzy Osbourne to me just looks like kind of a combination between Slash and an owl or something. And he had blonde hair. I was shocked.
Osborne is described as dynamic and ultimate by the announcer. That's quite a way to come in. As you've already said, he's got bleach blonde hair and a pink suit going on.
Of course he has. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, of course not.
Prince of Darkness.
Yeah, good point. In further fashion news, Beefcake is in a great leopard print trench coat. The British Bulldogs are described as the Cinderella story of the WWF, and we've got 2 referees in this one to prevent any Dream Team shenanigans. There's a strong technical opening by Valentine and Bulldog, as you'd expect. In a strange heel/face reversal, it's Valentine that can't get to Beefcake. Valentine eventually has to go outside to gain a breather, and he gains the upper hand back in the ring, eventually tagging in Beefcake. This match is essentially an amazing suplex exhibition. We've got delayed, fisherman, snap suplexes, all of which are executed with utter perfection. When Valentine re-enters, he hits a part dangerous, part shit front pile driver, rather than falling back as wrestlers would do in later years before the move was almost totally phased out due to its neck-breaking qualities. Did you see this? He kind of fell forward with the pile driver?
It's not like...
Just either way, it's a bad move.
Yeah, it's not the perfect example, and obviously it's dangerous, and there will be some injuries soon-ish regarding the move.
Yeah, whether falling forward or back, it's a damn dangerous move. The rest of the match is great technical mastery before a strange end where Dynamite Kid is randomly perched on the ropes. He's that desperate for the hot tag. An accidental headbutt with Valentine sends the Dynamite Kid falling to the outside. He takes the bump awesomely, as you might expect. And Valentine is so dazed by the weird spot that he can't answer the 3 count from the Bulldog's pin. Beefcake is seriously slow in his attempts to stop the 3 count and also pretends to trip over the ropes in a shitty soccer-style simulation/dive. Your winners and new tag team champions, the British Bulldogs. Best match of the night for me by an absolute country mile. Strong technicality and one of the greatest exhibitions of suplexes you'll ever see. A much better near 15-minute match than our time spent with Roddy Piper and Mr. T. 3.5 out of 5 here from me. Shoot, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely the same. Best match of the night. Not to say that you shouldn't continue listening, obviously. There is a few okay matches coming up and then one nestled in between, which I'm not massive on. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5 for me. Nathan pretty much summed it up, as I would as well. Suplexes all around. Suplex City, one might say. If you want to see some good suplexes, watch some Lesnar 2014. There are some matches in there, or even 2015. But yeah, no, best match of the night. And obviously, big fan of the British Bulldogs getting the championship, bringing it home.
But then Mean Gene steps into the ring and interviews Lou Albano, the Bulldogs manager. Albano goes mad about his 16th title as a manager, an impressive feat. And a rather dazed Osborne, not saying there's any substance abuse here as well, says, "The British Bulldogs forever!" before unconvincingly saying he'll be back to help them again. And then Davey Boy Smith announces that the Bulldogs will be staying in the US after their victory. Maybe it was a condition for their visa.
Maybe working permits. Yeah.
We're back with Vince and Susan in New York. There's a short preview of the LA portion of the show, which contains the steel cage main event for the WWF title between Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy. And we're on to that part of the show now, part 3 from the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Center in California. This is a weird fact. The LA fans saw the first and second parts of the show on tape delay after their section, which is quite interesting. But because of the time difference, it wasn't that late to actually watch the rest of the
I'm trying to get my head around that. But yeah, I can
so
remember...
they watched the first 2 last.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be weird for the fact of like sending obviously messages between like, oh, we're going back to Vince McMahon and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can remember hearing some odd stuff about the mechanics behind working WrestleMania 2 on the Story of WrestleMania DVD.
Yeah.
They go through it quite a lot. But I even heard that someone flew. I don't know whether that was true, like someone like Vince or something after they finished the pay-per-view went to LA or something, or something really weird. But yeah, anyway.
Vince probably time travelled, though. He's got that much power. So yeah, part 3, or commentators for part 3 are Jesse Ventura, Lord Awkward Hayes, Lord Alfred Hayes,
Yep.
and Elvira. And Elvira is our third inexperienced actress commentator of the evening.
Boobarella.
And Boobarella from The Simpsons.
Yeah,
you told
same
me
person.
All 3 of these commentators seem way too pumped for this event. And Lee Marshall, don't know much about him, I wikied him, he has a wiki page, I think he passed away actually, is your commentator for this section of the show. I shouldn't say that like it's amazing, like a lot of these people in the show, steroids or not, have passed away. Match 9 of the evening, the first match in the LA portion, is Hercules Hernandez versus Ricky Steamboat. Both men are in the Intercontinental title picture for this one, so it's quite a big match. Hercules' costume is awesome. He looks like a crazy Roman warrior. You should appreciate that, you classics man.
Thank you.
He certainly doesn't actually seem to be Hispanic, despite his Hernandez moniker. We get a clear heel-face indication with Hernandez's black trunks and Steamboat's white ones. This section of the show includes more poor lighting, and we're back to feeling like this is a house show, not a WrestleMania. There's a short delay on the commentary as the three get back into their positions because they were at ringside. More technical fuckery. Ventura's mic is totally fucked. Steamboat starts the match with characteristic arm bars and an arm drag. Hernandez is surprisingly athletic. He jumps over Steamboat during an Irish whip segment. The scarf on Steamboat is described as wimpy. Why they even he's got like a scarf on his leg, and I don't know why they mentioned it. Hernandez has a strong showing, hitting a mad clothesline, hard knees, and a bear hug into Steamboat, dropping down he gets clotheslined on the ropes. He also hits 2 clotheslines on Steamboat, but poses too long to get the 3 count. He then performs a press slam with absolutely no control. Steamboat almost falls on his head, slamming Steamboat to the mat. He decides to repeat the spot to show that he does know how to not break necks, so they do it twice. Hernandez then gets caught with knees as he tries to splash Steamboat, and Steamboat hits a crossbody from the top. There's a crazy fast 3 count, and Steamboat picks up the win. Ventura agrees with my assessment that the count is way too fast and tells Alfred to stop fighting with him about the decision. Oh, I'm sorry, Ventura. Hernandez is pissed off at the close of the match, probably due to the count. This for me was a strong match, actually. Steamboat just doesn't do bad wrestling. I've still not seen him wrestle a bad match. And Hernandez appears strangely athletic for his size. I gave this one 3 out of 5. What about you?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of a poor Ricky Steamboat match. I'm thinking maybe the really late stuff he does against like Jericho or something. But even then, he's
the best performer in that match.
He carries that team. Yeah, for me, it was the best one-on-one match of the night. Joint in terms of rankings with another one, but yeah, for me again, 3 out of 5. And like Nathan said, Ricky Steamboat, he didn't carry it. Hercules Hernandez. Like we said, he does his jumps, he does his spots, he does everything which he needs to do. There's nothing. The issue with this is that there's nothing really to push this match further. There was no like insane spot, if you like. It was all kind of very solid wrestling, but nothing. An
insane spot in an 80s match?
Well,
let's give it too much.
well, we had the double axe handle off the thing, and like I said, we've got quite an innovative match coming up as your main event, so it's possible to get on there. But yeah, for me, 3 out of 5. Yeah,
Hernandez, totally clean. That's all I'm saying. Can jump and is massive? I don't know about that. We go on to match 10. Wow, I don't even know where to begin. It's Adrian Adonis with his manager Jimmy Hart against fucking Uncle Elmer.
Now, we take different approaches on this one. For me, it's Uncle Elmer versus fucking Adrian Adonis. Because it's not Adrian Adonis. It's not cool Street Fighter Adrian Adonis with his leather jacket and his really cool gimmick. It's adorable Adrian Adonis, who... The thing which annoys me the most about him is his purple eye. Have you seen that?
No,
he has makeup,
a little bit of a smear,
just like on one side of his face. He looks like he's just giving himself a black eye. And then there was the prancing, and I just didn't get... This was like...
You've covered like half of my description.
In my head, this is just a man who's had like such like a good career up to this point, and they were like, right, for the twilight of your career, can you just kind of go into like a Cupid sort of... I didn't get it.
I think he died in like 88. So
I looked this up. He died...
Car crash, right?
Yeah, when he was 33 with like a few other guys as well, a few other wrestlers. But that gimmick was just appalling. Adorable Adrian Adonis, not a fan.
So the network edit of the pay-per-view skips straight to this match. As you've already said, Adonis moves away from his New York hardman gimmick and is now in his adorable phase, the Twilight phase, as you aptly put it. The network edit of Elmer's entrance music is way too loud. It's like... and he can't hear anything.
I thought the crowd was quite hot for him. I genuinely,
oh my God.
I genuinely think, I don't know whether this is a network edit.
That's just disturbing, isn't it? I reckon that was where they put in crowd noise when his music came
quite possibly, but
because if you see the man,
he was the crowd, I can remember thinking, watching this, like, man, he's got one of the biggest ovations of the night. I don't know whether it was the LA we're in now?
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was the LA crowd, who were particularly pumped more so than the Chicago or the New York. Obviously, Chicago's got a history of having a great crowd at wrestling, so maybe that wasn't the case. But yeah, the crowd just seemed very hot for him for whatever reason. Uncle Elmer.
To me, it sounded like the SmackDown. I'm like the SmackDown added in crowd noise.
SmackDown do add in crowd noise, yeah.
Elmer then makes fun of Adonis's effeminacy with a homophobic limp wrist routine. Wow. Adonis is sent into the corner upside down early on in a Ric Flair style, although only shitter. And Elmer falls over after punching Adonis in a hilarious botch. One of my favourite moments again. Gave him a punch, but because he's so fat and one move away from a heart attack, he just... he fell to the floor.
Yep.
Adonis ends up outside, and Ventura comments about his beautiful dress on the beer-laden floor. Possibly the best line of the whole show. Elmer rips the dress of Adonis to reveal his considerable man boobs, and Lord Alfred Hayes says, "Elmer's had enough of that finery." Also a challenger for the best line of the night for me. Adonis finally strips off the last of his finery after gaining the upper hand to large boos. Elmer hits an avalanche in the corner but then misses his shit leg drop. Adonis hits an equally awful splash from the top rope to pick up the win. I feel sorry for Adonis because I actually think he's a fairly competent wrestler for his size, and he has to face Uncle Bloody Elmer. This was a terrible match but also had some hilarious moments. For me, it was a 1.5 out of 5.
I wasn't as harsh, to be fair. I imagine the missing... I gave it a 2, and I imagine the missing 0.5 is really due more to Nathan's distaste or dislike... hatred. I'm gonna go hatred for Uncle Elmer. For me,
well, yeah. I'm just fearful... Well, obviously, he probably did die of a heart. He is dead, I know that. I don't know what he died of. But I just fear for the man. Like, he's huge.
He is big. You know, this is the 80s. This is the land of giants, the WWE.
The Reagan land of prosperity. All the food you can eat.
Or not, as the opening promo would have you believe. But yeah, for me, a 2. Like Nathan said, there's a few good spots in terms of, like, high flying, if you like, for these they're both big guys. But I just don't get adorable Adrian Adonis, I'm sorry, and it was never going to score higher than a 2.
Elvira comments at the end of the match, "Never trust a man who wears pink leg warmers." More 80s homophobia.
And then she says something like, she tries to say something like, "I know I've made that mistake before, I'm pretty sure." And I was a bit. She was the best of
bit of debauchery in her previous life.
Of the three guest female announcers, she was certainly the best. There was another line. I don't know whether it's happened already or if it's coming up, where I can't remember which matches, but they start to strip almost, like people are having their clothes. It might be this one. People are having their clothes pulled off. She's like, "Woohoo! Less clothes." That's what I'm looking for. And it was like, all right, calm down, Booberella. You're just here.
Then we get another interview with Hulk Hogan. Yes, another interview with the Hulkster. This time with Alfred Hayes, Mr. Awkward Hayes. Hayes questions Hogan's mental and physical problems. Hogan calls him Awful Alfred. I prefer to call him Awkward Alfred. Mm-hmm. Hogan says he would wrestle even if he was crawling on one arm, and he wants Bobby Heenan to get involved so he can get to him. Hogan's terribly placed bandana looks like he's wearing an eye patch throughout. He later has it in his mouth during his entrance for the Bundy match. Match 11 is another tag match, your second one of the evening, which sees the Funk Brothers, Terry and Hoss, with Jimmy Hart pitted against Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog. Wow, I can't believe that Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog are still friends after a year since they helped each other out at Mania 1. Ventura hates JYD's chain again. He says this in almost every match that JYD has. Hayes argues that it's an emblem of who he is. Perhaps a bit of British colonialism coming in there.
Maybe, yeah.
The match is 3 years after Terry Funk's first official retirement in 1983. I think he still wrestles part-time, amazingly. Throughout this match, Elvira proves herself to be the least annoying and most in the know of the 3 actress commentators. Perhaps she's actually seen wrestling before.
Been to a live event.
Yeah, maybe. She's actually been to a live event. I haven't actually been to a live event. I should really go to one.
You lived in Norwich for a bit.
I know, I should have gone, yeah. I shouldn't even be commenting on this. I've been to a live event.
Well, this has been the wrestling review.
I've seen a lot, okay. I've seen a lot on the interweb and TV. Yeah. Okay, I want to go to one, but it's very expensive. Funk throws in some chairs for no reason at the start of the match. Terry Funk is way too excited and falls into the ring as he is avalanched by his own brother off an Irish whip. I don't know why he goes to another corner and then chucks himself in. Santana disposes of Funk's with clotheslines to the outside and drop kicks. The JYD rams Terry Funk's head 10 times, twice over, into the turnbuckle before throwing Funk out again. There's a cool suplex where Santana hits the move so hard that Funk's legs end up hitting the bottom ropes on impact. Like, they're pretty central to the ring. Do you remember that spot? It's pretty good.
I do. That was a good one.
Santana becomes isolated, but does hit the hot tag after dodging the opposition on all fours, perhaps taking some of the spirit of the dog there to get the tag. There's a double noggin knocker from JYD to the Funks. Then Terry Funk then takes an awesome backdrop to the outside in an Attitude Era prelude. The JYD slams Terry Funk through a table on the outside. The JYD attempts a pin back in the ring, but this is broken up by Hoss Funk, who is then put in a figure four by Tito. And Hoss sells this amazingly for all of the 1 second.
I thought he applied it okay. I feel like he missed the initial thing, but it looked like it was relatively well applied.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't hold it for very long at all.
Yeah, like 1 second.
He literally just goes like, okay, it's done.
The match breaks down as Terry Funk grabs the microphone of Jimmy Hart and smashes the JYD with it, who takes the bump awesomely with a comical knockout. He kind of like slowly falls to the floor and his eyes are glazed over. It's great. Great action. The Funks pick up the win after this. For me, this was another strong showing, another strong tag match, the second best match of the night. It receives a 3.5 out of 5 from me. The crowd are less impressed with the winner, and we get our second bullshit chant of the evening. It's good for you, Tom?
Yeah, that's an intimate question. I gave it a 3. I thought, like Nathan said, I thought it was probably the second best match of the night. I think Terry Funk was probably my MVP. I thought a lot of people performed well. Junkyard Dog did. Junkyard Dog's a solid worker.
I love JYD.
Yeah, I think he's really underrated as well. You don't often hear him mentioned when you talk about, because I'm like, you talk about the Savages and the Steamboats and even the Hogans.
It's because he was kind of more famous in, I can't remember the territory's name, but maybe the WWF are trying to be like, no, we were the only WWE, sorry.
AWA or something.
Yeah, it might have been AWA. We're the only company ever.
Yeah, I don't know. But for me, Terry Funk was really good. Like Nathan said, we've got Attitude Era precursor, if you like, his Chainsaw Charlie days, I think. But yeah, he's
Chainsaw Charlie, so bad.
You got that coming up. He sells really well as well, and I got really confused when they introduced Hoss Funk, because I was like, isn't that Dory Funk Jr.?
Yeah, it is.
And then I looked it up, Dory Funk Jr. as well. But everyone performed very well. Tito Santana's obviously a solid in-ring worker. The Funks take bumps better than a lot of people at this period, and JYD, like I said, is underrated. So yeah, for me it was a 3 out of 5.
Oh, give it the 0.5.
It's close. It's the closest other than the tag team championship match. But yeah, tag team wrestling at this point was obviously
very strong.
Yeah.
They're actually pushing them. Listen, Vince.
Obviously, the Hart Foundation have a good showing in the Battle Royal as well.
Yeah. We go back now to Ventura, Alfred Hayes, and Elvira. They comment on the cage emerging. This has to be constructed rather than descending from the rafters in future years. I think this is the first instance of the iconic blue cage, which has become a real symbol of the WWE.
I like more than the current one. I'm
really?
Just going to throw it out there, yeah.
Oh, I love a good stainless steel cage.
I like it to be a bit taller, because it's quite low.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're getting into it at the moment. This is like, I don't know if this is the first steel cage match that they've had. Obviously, first one in Mania. But yeah, it was a bit low, but yeah, I really like the blue design. I thought that could be fun. It's like maybe on one of the old school Raws, they always have them kind of on like the road to Mania.
Right, I'd like to see that.
They could just have a blue steel cage match.
You just love the Punjabi prison match. That's
Prison.
why you want those like the square holes.
Re-sign Carly.
My least favourite wrestler ever. I think they've definitely had cage match feel, because that iconic moment where Snooker jumps off the cage.
Of course, yeah.
I think that's a WWF match. They discuss how the cage has been reinforced due to the fact Bundy's massive. 6 men have to carry each side in. Elvira says this is weird. She starts flirting with Ventura. She says, it looks like one of those rooms in my house.
Oh,
ooh,
yeah,
kinky.
Yeah. This was also when, during the previous tag match, she said something like, oh, I really like Tito Santana, I like them tall, dark and handsome. And then Ventura gets kind of like, what are you doing? Why don't you like me? And she's like, oh no, I like them pale and blonde like you as well, and it's all very awkward. Yeah, I don't know. She was the best one, but yeah, this was kind of playing to a creepy gothic sex woman.
A hussy.
A ladies champion.
Strumpet. So yeah, we get that kinky comment before Ventura replies equally kinkily, asking whether it's the one with the bats in.
Yeah, the one with the bats. I don't know, is that a thing? Is that just a reference I don't get?
Like a BDSM thing?
I don't know, maybe.
Let's not discuss BDSM anymore. We get a video package with Hulk Hogan. This goes on for quite a while. It's Mean Gene in Hulk Hogan's private gym. We get a recap of Saturday night's main event where Bundy splashed Hogan in the corner and several times splashed him on his front and back on the floor. The splashes on the floor are added to by Morocco, weirdly pressing down on Bundy as he comes down onto Hogan. This led to a kayfabe injury to Hogan's ribs, and Hogan was also supposedly unconscious. Hillbilly Jim is randomly with Hogan, along with his doctor. The doctor has advised Hogan not to take part in WrestleMania II, as he fears a herniated disc in his back. But I thought it was the ribs that were the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, does it?
And it doesn't even look like it's like...
No, it's quite low. It's around like the stomach more so than the chest. But obviously
herniated
ribs go
colon.
Ribs go relatively low. But yeah, obviously if he's talking about the spinal injury, then that will certainly cover that.
Hogan keeps referring to the ambulance as some kind of funeral. If only Hulkamania had died earlier. Hogan does a nuts workout with chin-ups whilst having dumbbells strapped around his neck. It's pretty crazy. Hogan announces that he's been in pain for 5.5 weeks now, since SNME. So we're back with Ventura, who's with Heenan. I think it's a pre-taped interview with Heenan and King Kong Bundy. Ventura is worried about Bundy's beautiful face. Ugh.
I'm going to throw out there, Bundy is the most translucent looking man I think I've ever seen.
The milk bottle!
He almost seems like he's glowing from inside.
Have you seen Trevor Murdoch?
No.
Yeah, he's pretty...
Is he like that as well, yeah?
They used to call him a milk bottle.
Yeah, it's really odd. He's got like no eyebrows and he's just like a really kind of washed out shade of white. It's just very odd. But yeah, anyway, I digress.
Bundy announces that it's historical fact that Hogan is left lying in defeat every time he faces him, even though I don't think he's beaten him at all. Both Heenan and Bundy tell WWF to line up the doctors and ambulances for when Bundy is through with Hogan. Ventura believes Bundy is more than ready and Hogan is in for the fight of his life. Bundy announces that he'll turn LA on its ear, whatever that means. Elvira then sends us back again to McMahon and St. James in New York.
This was when St. James probably did her best line. Because I know they talk about kind of like an end to Hogan, to Hulkamania.
I know where you're going with this.
It's like an end to Hulkamania, and then Vince is like, they were talking about Bundy Mania, and then she's just like, Bundy Mania doesn't even sound very good. And I was like,
it's exactly what I've written down.
I was like, oh, she's not wrong. It doesn't sound very good.
She didn't come up with that though, because Bundy says it in the promo.
Yeah, but I'm saying that.
I don't want to give it any credit.
Just her review of Bundy Mania, kind of like, no, it doesn't sound very good. Just very nonchalant, just like getting rid of it straight away.
Ventura and Elvira are back in LA. We get a further discussion of the cage reinforcements. Then we get introduced to guest ring announcer. He's the LA Dodgers manager, so he gets a big pop, and his name is Tommy Lasorda. Thought I'd just jazz it up.
What was it?
Lasorda.
Oh, of course it was.
I think it's just Lasorda. The timekeeper is young actor Ricky Schroeder, who isn't tragically dead now. He's actually a young actor who survived. And special referee, who is also an actor, Robert Conrad.
Yep.
And we're on to match 12, the main event. I should have just held that for longer.
That was lovely.
I'm Pavarottiing. It's King Kong Bundy, the challenger, with Bobby the Brain Heenan versus Hulk Hogan, the WWF champion for the championship.
What?
For the WWF championship inside a steel cage. Your main event. Hogan shakes the cage and climbs up it and enters in true Hulkamania style. La Sorta's microphone still swings in the ring, so Bundy smashes it away. Hogan has the upper hand early on with punches, chops and boots. Bundy begins his attack on the ribs as Hogan tries to smack his head into the cage. I'm not sure how much that cage would actually hurt compared to...
I feel like you just go through it.
What,
pops
Bundy?
Out the other side. Oh, his head, mate.
Yeah.
It just pops out the other
Translucent head.
side. Just a light bulb.
Oh, I wish it was a stainless steel cage. Hogan sells his ribs really well at every opportunity. You can't say he wasn't a good worker and a good face. Bundy tries to escape but is prevented, so he slams Hogan into the cage. He tries again and Hogan stops him again, so a very pissed off Bundy unravels Hogan's bandages, although I don't think they call them bandages. I think they just call them tape in America.
Something like that, maybe.
Bundy chokes Hogan briefly and then ties him to the ropes with the bandages. The bandages, thinking that this will assure him the win. But
that was quite a good spot.
Yeah, that was quite cool.
Quite clever.
But Hogan gets free very quickly and saves his title again. Hogan builds some offense, finally hitting Bundy on the bars, and Bundy blades unsubtly as Heenan holds his head weirdly to stop the crowd and the camera from seeing the facade. Did you like the blood in this match?
It was odd because you don't often see the heel bleed. If you know what I mean, like obviously.
I think it was to get Hogan over even more.
Yeah, I suppose like a classic heel bleeding would be Hart Austin, but obviously you've got
the face after that.
Well, yeah, you've got a double switch.
Yeah.
Bleeding is often kind of used to evoke sympathy, and it was weird. It was almost like, I know that there was the choking out with the bandages, and so obviously there were
slip of the tongue.
There were some heel moves from Bundy, but it was odd to see him bleed and not Hogan, particularly considering they were trying to reinforce the vulnerability of Hogan going into the match with his ribs and his spine and whatever.
Elvira buys the blood and asks the match to be stopped. Perhaps she isn't actually that knowledgeable. Hogan punches the open wound and hits Bundy into the bars again. He steps on Bundy's head as he appears to be escaping, but then randomly opts not to. He tries a huge slam, but this is reversed with Bundy landing on Hogan's tender and exposed area. sounds a bit kinky.
Horrible.
Got a bit Elvira on everyone.
Booberella.
Hogan uses that tape, the tape that was previously on his ribs or whatever area it's on, to prevent Bundy escaping, which Lord Orchid Hayes describes in a wonderfully English way as tit for tat.
Does he choke him again? Am I right in thinking that he chokes him?
I haven't got this written down, but you may have done.
I feel like, and again, it's a very kind of like heelish move. I know that he was like molten hot at this stage, Hogan, and like so over that it doesn't matter regardless. But I feel like if that happened in like a kind of a today sort of era, you had someone like Sheamus, who's been playing a face obviously up until recently. But he was always kind of doing those like dickish sort of things, which you'd be like, well, that's actually like a heel move, and Hogan employed that a few times throughout this match.
Ventura blames the tit-for-tat comment of Hayes, blames his statement and Hayes' opinion on his Englishness. Damn you, Ventura.
Screw the English.
You colonialists. Bundy hits an avalanche and splash on the floor as it appears Hogan's title is slipping from his grasp, but Bundy can't quite escape. He tries a second splash in the corner, but Hogan hulks up after he hits it, reversing Bundy's Irish whip and hitting an amazing body slam on Bundy out of the corner and hits his patented leg drop. That was amazing, that slam.
It wasn't even like a proper body. It was kind of like a scoop slam sort of thing. I'm talking like
an Orton thing.
An Orton, a Gold Dust, one of those kind of like, just scoops. It was good. It was one of the better moves I've seen from Hogan recently, watching him recently.
Hogan tries to escape, but Heenan prevents him. Bundy's knocked down by Hogan as he tries to prevent his escape. Knocked down off the top, which is quite a force of nature once he's knocked down, and Hogan escapes to retain. He doesn't walk through the door at any point to enter or out of the cage to win. He's Hulk freaking Hogan. He doesn't need a door. The winner of your main event and still WWF champion, Hulk Hogan. This was surprisingly enjoyable despite the lack of athleticism on display. Nice to see a bit of blood because I'm disturbing like that. Maybe I should go into Elvira's room.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. Those bats will be dead by now.
And they use Hogan's injury really well. Hogan solved this well and was an awesome babyface throughout. I loved Hogan's slam near the end as well. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars.
3 out of 5 from me as well. Nathan summed it up relatively well. Disagree slightly on the Hogan being an awesome babyface, as I've said before. I thought that at the beginning it was, and there was a slight kind of shift, but obviously he's always going to bring it back because it's Hulk Hogan. I thought the match suffered through a lack of predictability. I know obviously I'm watching it with 30 years hindsight, but I never...
It's like you've been alive that long.
I never really expected Hogan to lose, and he never really looked uncomfortable. There was one splash, but obviously in a Hogan match you're expecting a Hulk up at some point, so there was never really kind of a, oh no, Hogan might actually lose this one. I don't know whether that, like I said, that's just a hindsight thing, but on the whole, good match, and 3 out of 5, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, so after the match, Heenan tries to hide in the cage, but Hogan wins the War of Strength, unsurprisingly, as Ventura gets annoyed that Hogan is attacking Heenan, as Heenan didn't get involved in any point, because obviously he couldn't climb the cage, because he's Bobby Heenan.
Such as opening the door. But actually, yes,
Oh, yeah.
something I forgot to mention. I really liked the bit at the end. Hogan goes over the cage. Bundy goes out the door, but
Yeah.
Hogan just beats him to the
Right.
floor. I thought that's quite good storytelling. You see that in a few random cage matches throughout the last 30 years as well. But yeah, just little things like that they always add to matches.
It's like when Batista and Undertaker fell out of the
Same
cage at the
time.
same time, even though they didn't. They just matched it up
Yeah.
on because it wasn't live. I'd hate to do that spot
was,
live. That's pressure.
It's like a Punk cash-in, I think that might have been.
Was it an
comes
Edge
out-
cash-in?
Oh, it might have been an Edge cash-in.
Oh,
Henry comes out,
Oh,
kills
yeah.
Batista. God, reminiscing, eh?
Yeah, if they screwed up that spot, that would have been...
Awful.
Yeah.
And Undertaker wins.
Go home, Edge. So Hogan punches... We are really just going all over the place. Hogan punches and slams Heenan into the cage, who takes the bump really well, I thought. An atomic drop sends Heenan scuttling out of the ring.
It's Heenan.
And... Oh, I keep saying Heenan.
Heenan.
Oh, I'm combining
Hogan
Heenan and
and
Heenan.
Heenan, yeah.
Scuttling out of the ring and cage. There's a mic fail as we only hear Lasorda say, "Of the world!" Elvira describes it as the wrestling match of the decade. Quite an overstatement, and she probably hasn't watched that much wrestling then, but it was good fun. Hogan does usual poses as Ventura, Hayes, and Elvira say their goodbyes from LA and send us to Vince for the final word. We get Vince just on audio saying, "I hope you enjoyed WrestleMania II." It was very average. This isn't actually Vince in New York, it's just the audio. Strange. I would think they wanted a video feed, but once again, the tech fucked up, I would think.
Yeah, they have to work within their limitations, like Nathan said.
Did they? We'll get to this.
We brought this up when we first got to LA, if you like. Jesse's mic throughout pretty much the entire thing was just poor.
So loud.
Like you'd hear.
It's like me before I bought the pop shields.
You'd hear kind of like at points it would be very quiet, and then at points it would pop up really loud, and it was all over the place. But yeah.
At the end of the show, apparently there were some video highlights, but these were not included on the network version.
No.
With generic 80s music in the background. They might not have wanted to include it because the show was already running. I think it ended at 3:01, 3 hours and 1 minute.
I feel like my network thing stopped when Hogan was just celebrating.
So you were just like, fuck it.
I was
I'm
like,
done.
yeah. I was like, I'll do it.
No, it did. Yeah, it faded out.
Hogan was just kind of like doing his thing, and then
Damn, I wanted the video highlights.
He posed with someone at the end. He posed with what's his name, the actor, the guest referee.
Oh,
Whatever his name was.
Oh, which one?
The guest referee.
The
young
older one?
No, the older one.
The older one. Hang on, let me go back here, trying to find out the... Robert Conrad.
Robert Conrad. I think he posted with him at the end. That was when Mike cut out, and I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Right, so... Yeah, here is my conclusion for the show.
Okay.
WrestleMania 2 is a pretty messy show. There are tech problems, way too much time taken over by celebrities, and crappy announcers, commentators who don't even have a basic understanding of sports entertainment. It was an ambitious project and ultimately a flawed one, never to be repeated by Vince and co. The wrestling ranged from the downright horrible, the average, and the very competent, with the 2 tag matches as the obvious outstanding bouts from this show, especially the tag title Bulldog victory. Hogan Bundy was also an impressive and well-told / choreographed contest, which was above any expectation I had for a match between these 2 clunky and chunky competitors, and I also enjoyed Steamboat Hercules and Wells Roberts, despite how short both the matches were. However, this might all be forgotten when we consider how bad Uncle Elmer versus Adrian Adonis was, a match that was actually after the tag title belt due to the disorganised setup of the 3-city show. Elmer is certainly the worst performer on the show, and his punch full botch only added to the hilarity of his wrestling ability. Poor old, fairly competent big man boob man, Adrian Adonis. The MVP or MVPs in this case for me are the British Bulldogs, who wrestled one of the most technically sound tag matches you'll ever see, and came away with tag titles despite the bizarre finish and Ozzy Osbourne. Bulldogs!
What's going on there?
The show is messy and average at best. I'd rather watch the Wrestling Classic, despite its 15 matches, any day, and not have to deal with the confusion. There were 12 matches on this pay-per-view, but spread over 3 hours, by the way. Still way too many for my liking. I gave this pay-per-view a 5 out of 10. It's often ranked as one of the worst Manias, I think alongside the likes of 9 and 11, especially 9. There was too much pop culture rammed into one show and not enough wrestling. But Vince would say, "It's sports entertainment, damn it, not sport. I'm Vince Kennedy McMahon, damn it." What did you think, Tom?
Thank you, Vince. So my take on it was they knew that they had something special with WrestleMania, I think, and I feel like this show needed to happen to make WrestleMania 3, which I don't want to spoil, but there's a few good matches on that.
Great show.
This show needed to happen to make WrestleMania 3 happen, because they realised that rather than splitting your talent, your talented superstars, talented is the wrong word, but your more talented superstars, and putting them into matches with kind of like mediocre, average, even poor performers, if you combine them, obviously you're getting a much better match. And I mean, the prime example would be splitting up Savage to Steel and Steamboat to Hercules Hernandez. Steel and Hercules Hernandez aren't as good as Savage and Steamboat. I'm not sure I'm going to get any hate for saying that.
I don't know. Hernandez is pretty sweet.
They're not bad wrestlers, but
Steel is shit.
but Steamboat and Savage were obviously a different echelon, and things like that needed to happen. I agree with Nathan that there was too much. It was too pop culture-y. It was too ambitious, really. It's only the second show, and I get that they needed to beat the first one, if you like.
There was so many celebrities that it was a joke.
Yeah, and there was a lot.
What was it, like 20, 25 celebrities at the end?
Yeah, it must have been. Well, I mean, it depends if you include the NFL stars. You've got, and I felt that having 3 main events, if you like, for each city. I understand that there was obviously, you had people paying and you have to give them like a big match, but having almost like 3 main events was also too much. It needed strengthening in the key areas, and it was too diluted, and that's what suffered it, really. So yeah, I gave it a 4.5. My MVP, I agree with Nathan that the British Bulldogs performed well. I think Ricky Steamboat deserves a special shout, and like I said, I thought Terry Funk did very well in his tag match in terms of selling. If you're a fan of someone like Dolph Ziggler, which I know Nathan is, then you'll appreciate a good seller when you see one. So yeah, but for me, 4.5. It was a
good seller. What, like wine and beer?
Like wine and beer, sure. Like Boobarella's cellar.
Oh god, the bats. Just a little bit of aftermath for you about the show. The combined attendance for the whole event came to 40,085 people. I don't know if the maths is right here, but these are the figures I've got. We've got 16,585 at the Nassau Coliseum in New York, 9,000 at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, and 14,500 at the LA Sports Arena in LA. The buy rate for the event was 319,000, but I believe that that's just a closed circuit figure. I'm not sure whether that included the pay-per-view figure.
No idea.
So the Randy Savage and George Steele feud carried on.
Yeah,
they carried on feuding for the IC title after WrestleMania 2. They had a match on the January 3rd, 1987 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event again, which is where everything seemed to be contested, as we didn't have Raw and SmackDown. For the belt, Savage won it. The feud kind of died after that when Savage began an intense feud with Hulk Hogan, but failed to secure the WWF title. The Bulldogs retained the tag titles on the October 4th edition of SNME after defeating the Dream Team again in a 2 out of 3 falls match. So that must have been good. I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's on the network. After he won the Battle Royal, Andre really began to feel the effects of, I think I'm saying this right, acromegaly, fighting with consistent health problems related to the disease. This is a problem similar to giganticism, if that wasn't obvious. He took a hiatus to tour Japan and appeared in The Princess Bride.
Good film. Good film.
Have you noticed him in it?
Yeah. He's quite notable. No, he's
relatively huge,
but he's a relatively big character.
Oh, okay. In storyline, Andre no-showed a tag match against Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy. I don't know who he was tagging with, leading to a suspension instigated and exacerbated by that damn dastardly weasel, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Andre returned as the masked giant machine as Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy tried to prove they were the same guy. Sounds such a bad storyline.
I'm just thinking how reinforced that ring would have to be.
Yeah.
We got King Kong Bundy was weighing in at near 500, I think, in that steel cage match.
400. Well, they said 500, but 400, let's say.
Well, they had Hogan at 300. I was like, 300? Big John Studd, obviously, he's, about the same, 400. And then you've got Andre, probably an easy 500, I'd say, like just massive. So that ring, just people underneath it holding it up at that stage.
Get the cage out. Shut up, Elvira. WrestleMania 2 was the last major heel run for Rowdy Roddy Piper, who take 4 weeks of Piper's Piper's Fit?
You know Piper's Fit.
Piper's Pit simultaneously, and then had a month's hiatus. Oh, a lovely holiday for that racist. He returned as a face to battle the adorable Agent Adonis, who had started his own talk segment called, get this, The Flower Shop.
No, yeah, I'd look this up. I've read on his career, and I was not impressed after he lost his streak gimmick.
Oh, just damn it. Yeah, terrible homophobia.
Well, I read there that Piper was a guest on it, and
they beat each other up.
Oh no, beforehand, Adonis was a guest on it and gave him his leather jacket or something, or like at a point, Adonis gave him the leather jacket, and that's why Piper gets the infamous leather jacket.
Oh, right.
So yeah, they have a little bit of a history, but intertwined.
I wouldn't mind actually seeing that match. I think it might be all right. Just saying.
Not with Adrian Adonis.
With his adorable
Nope.
gimmick.
Nope.
Hogan's reign as the WWF champion was extended by victories over Randy Savage, Adrian Adonis, Hercules Hernandez, and Paul Orndorff. He retained the belt in all of these matches, obviously. The match with Orndorff occurred after Adonis stirred trouble between the two. Oh, Adrian.
They were meant to be good friends. Yeah, I read of this as well.
Yeah, he referred to Orndorff as blood in the Wrestling Classic.
You know, blood.
Just a bit of blood. So yeah, that wraps it up there for the Aftermath. Just time for a quick outro before we say goodbye. We have been going for an hour and 18 minutes. Wow. That is a wrap for today, guys. Thanks for listening into this edition of the Wrestle Review podcast. Like and subscribe if you're tuning in from YouTube. Repost and share on SoundCloud. And please, please, please send your feedback to the very dormant email address, WrestleReviewFans@gmail.com. I've currently only received, someone followed you on Twitter who is a troll. That's all I've been getting. Thanks to Tom as well for joining me again.
Thank you for having me again.
It was a absolutely awful show, but pretty hilarious, you have to say.
Yeah, no, it was entertaining. I think that's probably the best way to describe the show. Best way to describe it was entertaining.
Next week, next time, I'm not sure, I don't think Tom will be on this one as you're back in Warwick.
I am.
We'll be looking at the big event emanating from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, from later on in 1986. It's not actually a pay-per-view, but is included on the pay-per-view section of the network, so I thought I'd give it a little review. I need a break from 3-hour epics as well. I think it only goes on for 2. Phew! That should be up either end of next week or start of the week after. Thanks for listening. Be sure to contact and interact in the aforementioned ways. Remember, at WrestleReview94, if you want an even closer contact with me, you can at the Packham. Tom, what's yours? T Sinden?
At T Sinden, yeah.
Right. And also, please like the Facebook page. Just go on Pages and type in Wrestle Review, and hopefully it'll be there. And there's not another page with that name. So yeah, see you later, guys. Thank you for listening in, and I will see you for what will be the epic 5th episode, looking at the big event. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Say bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.